All right, Akim. Shalom, shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will as always, an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I'm just going to be going through this word called inauguration. Considering, today's the election, and whoever wins, or rather whoever is selected, so to speak, they go through this process. But I wanted to kind of go into what this actually process of inauguration actually means and where it goes back to, right? Because we hear these words, and sometimes it's kind of good to know a lot of these things and where these customs and so on and so forth come from, right? So without further ado, I want to go to this link I have here. So, and I'm just gonna read it, right? And then I'm just gonna chime in, and then put in some precepts, and Yahweh Rataza, Yahweh willing, that this lesson may be, may be edifying, right? So, so here's the first link. It says inauguration. So, it says in government and politics. Inauguration is a process of swearing a person into office, thus making the person the incumbent. Such an inauguration commonly occurs through a formal ceremony or special event, which may include an inaugural address or by officials. So after today, whoever is selected, they go through this process of being inaugurated. So that occurs normally in January in the United States, right? So now below it says the word inauguration stems from the Latin augur, which refers to the rituals of an ancient Roman priests seeking to interpret it if it was the will of the gods for the public official to be deemed worthy to assume office, right? So we're going to go into that a little bit more, right? So because it said, so right now I want to click on the word augur. So that's what they're referring to here, right? So I'm just going to read a little bit of this. As a matter of fact, let me get a precept since they mentioned that. Okay, so Psalms chapter 96 verse 5, and it says, "For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai made the heavens," right? So all these other idols that you hear about, Dagon, one of the gods of the Philistines, then you hear about different idols that, when King Solomon had his wives and they were, he was paying, he built statues and whatnot in the 11th, in 1 Kings 11 chapter, those different idols of the Ammonites and all these different ites, those are all idols, so to speak, right? We're not supposed to be, going after those things, right? Where was I? Okay, here. So an augur, so this is what the root of the word comes from. An augur was a priest, an official in the classical Roman world. His main role was to practice augury, the interpretation of the will of the gods by studying events he observed within a predetermined sacred space. All right, so I'm just gonna jump around a little bit. An augur's decisions was based on what he personally saw and heard from the templum. The templum is known as a sacred space. They included thunder, lightning, and any accidental signs such as falling objects, but in particular, bird signs, whether the birds he saw flew in groups or alone, what noises they made as they flew, the direction of flight, what kinds of birds they were, how many birds they were, and how they fed. This practice was known as taking auspices. So I'm just going to jump down a little bit, right? So it says an augural ceremony and function of an augur was central to any major undertaking in Roman society. So, right, so all these different practices that you're seeing here today, go back to ancient Rome, right? So it says public or private, including matters of war, commerce, and religion. Augurs sought divine will regarding the proposed course of action, which might affect Rome's Pax, Fortuna, and Salus. So those are the Latin words for Pax is peace, Fortuna is good fortune, and Salus is it says well-being, right? So they were consulted, these individuals here, to essentially know the will of the so-called gods. We already know that they're not gods, right? Rome was prophesied as one of those different beasts in Daniel the 7th chapter, and then they would fall, and so on and so forth. Just like all the other kingdoms before them, they all had their time to rule, because the scriptures say that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, right? So these so-called Romans, they would consult with these. I guess at the time you can call them, they're like how today, for example, you have how do you call those people, like palm readers, right? Or even in Daniel's time, you had the astrologers, you had the Chaldeans, and so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, I can get that quickly, right? That's kind of like the equivalent. Okay, so this is Daniel. The point's in two, so I'll start at one. And it says, in the second year of the reign, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded and to call all the magicians, the astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to slew the king, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamt a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Thy servants dreamed a dream, and will show the interpretation. So that's really the point. They were the people that were consulted in the time of Rome to actually, know the will of of the events that are going to take place. Okay, are we gonna have good fortune? Are we gonna have war? How's the money going to be like? This is the customs of these other nations, and the scriptures talk about how the customs of these heathens are vain, right? So let me get a couple. Let me go to the Apocrypha and all that. I think that's about it I wanted to get. Oh, let me just go down here a little bit here. See if there was any more. Well, that's pretty much the point, really. They were like the Roman version of the astrologers, the Chaldeans, the people who essentially were consulted when in regards to the will of the events and how things would occur in their empire, right? They were like those, people, so to speak. What was I gonna? Okay, the Apocrypha. That's right. Just bear with me on this. Because it mentions that they were part of knowing their so-called interpretations was really just based on the interpretations of noticing the things in the atmosphere, so to speak. So they're looking at the behavior of the birds, how many they were, so on and so forth. Okay, if you they saw 5 birds, okay, maybe you get 5 good years of 5 years of good fortune, so to speak. That was used as an example, right? But I just wanted to read this in Wisdom of Solomon, right? Because there was a lot of they venerate these different things in the air, as powerful as gods, so to speak, right? But so this is Wisdom of Solomon 13 verse 1, and it says, "Surely vain are all men by nature who are ignorant of the Most High, and could not out of the good things that are seen." Let me read that again. It says, "Surely vain are all men by nature who are ignorant of the Most High, and could not out of the good things that are seen know him that is, neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle in the stars or the violent water or the lights of heaven to be the gods that govern the world," right? So these are the things that they were looking at and paying attention to, and giving veneration to, like, oh, okay, this is what I gotta, this is what's going to give me the answers, so to speak. These are the things that are governing the world, and right, and then the Most High is one that's controlling all things. The Lord says He creates peace and evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. To roughly paraphrase, right? There are no other, different gods anywhere else, right? But that's what a lot of these things. That's what a lot of these customs that these other nations believe in. They know there's a corn god. There is a tree god. There is a there's a land god. There is a cloud god. There's a god for all these different things. All these different nations. Like, for example, I believe it's the Elamites. A lot of these Elamites, they have like all these multiple different gods. I know there's a lot of them. Like in their temples, they show off these different gods, and Shiva and Vishnu and this and that and so on and so forth, right? I'll read verse 2 again, and it says, "But deemed either the fire or the wind or the swift air or the circle of the stars or the violent water or the lights of heaven to be the gods which govern the world," right? So these are the things that they deem to actually be of importance, right? They're not actually, the Lord is really the one who rules in the kingdom of men, really, right? you know, so let me go to, let's get, okay, Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9, and it says, "The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and then there is no new thing under the sun." Verse 10, and it says, "See, excuse me, sorry, is there anything whereof it may be said, See, this is new? It hath already been of old time, which was before us," right? And one of the reasons I read this, because a lot of these customs that you see that are going on in America, right? In America, you still have the election going on, and later on we'll figure out who essentially is selected. But a lot of these customs that you see that America still practices, a lot of it goes back to the ancient Roman Empire. Another example is the this two-party system that you see in the in America. Today, like, for example, in Canada, you have, they're known as the conservatives and the liberals, right? And then in America, they're known as Democrats and Republicans, right? And lo and behold, a lot of people may not know that that system was a system that was um, uh, that was borrowed, or that goes back to Rome as well, right? Back then, you had the patricians, and the patricians essentially were the upper echelon of the people. Like, so for example, your Caesars, your governors, so on and so forth. Those would be considered your patricians, and your plebeians were your regular kinfolk, right? Your regular laborers, your day laborers, like your cobblers, fishermen, bricklayers, stonemasons, so on and so forth. The common people, the farmers, so on and so forth, right? It's the exact same sentiment, and that's echoed in Revelation 13 and 11, right? Those two horns, as a lamb, right? Right? So it's the same system, same they're borrowing the same thing coming back, again. This is a revived version of that Roman Empire, right? And that whore is America, right? So, just to show you the parallels, there's other parallels as well, right? But I'm just showing you different a lot of these customs that occur in America. Those customs occur also we'll go back to ancient Rome as well, right? Um, Let me see. Let's go to Deuteronomy. Okay, Deuteronomy 18, verse 9, and it says, "When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy power giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do the abominations of those nations, for there shall be not be found any among you one that maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or use divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter of familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord thy power." Right? And then because of these abominations, the Lord thy power, Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, does drive them out before thee. So these are things that we're not even supposed to do, right? We're not supposed to be consulting with these different, so-called, palm readers. And like today you have that a lot, especially in the city of Toronto. You have them in your big cities, or, there's a lot of witches as well. They mess around with voodoo, like especially in the Caribbean and all that kind of crap, right? We're not supposed to be consulting with these, these particular people to know, oh, tell me if there's a wife in my future or something like that. People go to these things for very mundane things, but it's essentially the same spirit that's being done on a higher level in the realm of politics. That's where that inauguration goes back to, right? And that's one of the things that when you go back into the story of King Saul, that was one of his mistakes, right? As a matter of fact, let me get that. First Samuel, is it 28? Okay, First Samuel 28, verse 7. And it says, "Then said Saul unto his servants," oh, hold on. Let me start at 6. "And then Saul inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, or by Urim, nor by the prophets." Right? So that's key here, right? Because when we need inquiry of something, Jake, our people were supposed to go and inquire from the prophets. We're not supposed to inquire from, go to the palm readers and, go to, these fortune tellers and so on and so forth, right? So, but Saul was bugging out, right? So Saul was like, he was messed up in the head because the Lord took his spirit away from him, right? And then he started getting on really carnal. So this is what Saul did. Then said Saul unto his servants, seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said unto him, behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. So Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went, and two other men with him, and they came to the woman by night, and he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits and wizard out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die, right? So Saul, he had put forth like an edict, you can call it, right? And then eventually, he's kind of trying to put this woman in harm's way, but he's so like, he's so double-minded right now because the Lord's not, the Lord took away his spirit from him. So verse 10, and he says, and Saul sware unto her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord Yahweh liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. And the woman said, and then said the woman, whom shall I bring up unto thee? He said, bring me up Samuel, right? So essentially what now he's telling her is like, yo, I need you to contact Samuel, because at this point in the story, Samuel had passed away, right? So Samuel was essentially the one to actually, give him that counsel, via the Lord, right? But, our people, they take counsel, but not of me, right? They cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, so they may add sin upon sin. So this is the exact sentiment that Saul is doing right now, right? Going a little bit off topic, but I pray, that this all is actually, connecting, right? But the point really is, this is what this inauguration is, right? This is, and our people follow after these different customs and thinking that it's harmless, and thinking that it's supposed to, give them some comfort and answers as to what's going to happen to America. But attending, for example, like attending the inauguration, and voting, and getting into the system is not going to give you a covering, right? You need a covering of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai, right? You don't need a covering over these false gods, which are really just no gods to begin with, right? But our people don't understand that, and they seek to these leaders and flock to them as comfort, right? Man, there was a precept I wanted to bring on, and it just left me. That's pretty much it. I kind of wanted to get there. Oh. Jeremiah 51. There we go. Okay, Jeremiah 51. Start at verse 8, and it says, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so, she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her. Let us go everyone into his own country, for her judgment reached unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. Right? So, this is what the sentiment a prophet, will tell you, what the fate of this country known as America, right? It's going to crumble, and it's going to be destroyed by fire, right? Through these nuclear missiles and the chariots of the Lord, right? Because the judgment, America's judgment is so like it's just heaping upon judgment, and it's a place, and it's a country that is completely filthy. They have many enemies, right? Even though a lot of their own allies are going to turn against them as well, right? And a lot of people don't understand that, because when we tell them that, like the scriptures talk about how the poor man's wisdom is despised, they might pass by on the street and see us and think that we're people to be ignored, right? So essentially they mock at us, they ridicule us, and things in that nature, right? Instead of actually, but that is really inquiring of the prophets. It's not inquiring of these so-called leaders, so to speak. Your your prime ministers or your presidents, so on and so forth, right? Scriptures say that wisdom crieth aloud and she uttereth her voice in the streets, right? That's where you're going to find real wisdom, and that's why we're out there as well. Is to seek the Lord, one, while he may be found, and then two, we cover with a covering of Yahweh Bashem Shai, right? But our people covering with a covering, essentially of these other nations, right? And then there's no protection for them, right? Especially when times to come. So, wow. I guess that's pretty much about it. I kind of wanted to hit. There was a couple points here and there I wanted to jump around in, but I didn't want to make the lesson too long. But it just goes to. I just wanted to bring out a little bit of history in regards to this. The essentially the false gods that this goes back to this Roman Greco-Roman practice. Are people going into this election and thinking that this election and whoever is in the office is going to be their salvation, so to speak. They're going to fix everything. Like Babylon's not going to be healed, right? That's already written, right? And and our people are taking on this covering, right? And they're going to be essentially, a lot of them are going to be left out to dry, right? Especially when times of affliction come. Scriptures say that in times of affliction, they will seek me early, to roughly paraphrase, right? So it really just, I just wanted to hit a couple things here and there, but I sincerely pray that this lesson was edifying. I just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Till next time, I say Shalom.